Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is Andy in Singapore. If you haven't done so, I'd like to remind you to please remember to subscribe and like my channel because I need all the support from you. Thank you very much. In today's video, we are going to do a review of the new Seiko Cocktail Time. Reference number for this watch is SARY217. This is one of the newer colorway or newer model from the Seiko Presage Cocktail series, and on hand I can tell you this one features a really beautiful blue fume dial, and it also has this newer design H-link bracelet. I think this one looks really good. Now granted, the bracelet here doesn't have solid end links, it is still folded end links for the bracelet, but when you see the watch from the front here, the H-link design is really nice, and I think it looks better than the older models of the Cocktail Time series. Yet another feature that is newer in this model is that the size here, the watch case, is slightly smaller than the previous versions or previous models. And now with the lens zoom in very slightly, let's run through some of the specs of the new Seiko Cocktail Time model. This one here has a case size of 39.4mm, and this is a slightly smaller case size than the older models. They typically come in at around 41mm case size, and total thickness here is 12.4mm. That's measuring from the base of the exhibition case back to the top of the dome mineral crystal. Now, let's talk a little bit on this dome crystal. It gives off this very vintage look to the watch. Some sort of a bubble glass look here and really nice looking vintage style to the watch. Find this very interesting, even though it's not a sapphire crystal, which this watch definitely deserves, but I think this overall dome shape here on the crystal, the bubble glass look here, is really pleasing to the eye for this kind of watch design. The watch has a very strap-friendly 20mm lug width. You can definitely change out to a nice strap, a dark blue strap, alligator strap even. I think it's going to look really good to suit this style of watch. L to L here is also very manageable, coming in at just under 46mm, and the lugs here are really slim. There is also a bit of a down curve here to the lug, so I think in terms of wearability, definitely not an issue even if you have a smaller wrist. Now this is a brand new watch. Protective film still present on the watch and is on its full links. The watch weighs in at around 121 grams. I think this is probably helped by the fact that it doesn't have solid end links. The Seiko Presage Cocktail here is powered by the 4R35 movement. So this is the same movement found in all the lower tier Seiko automatics, and it's got a custom rotor to it. Nothing fanciful. I wouldn't say it's like Geneva stripes or blue screws flame blued or anything like that, but I think it looks pretty decent. And lastly, this watch here has a street price of around 500 Singapore dollars. You can definitely get this one from our boutique. This is where the watch was loaned in from. Thank you very much, our boutique, and Eric for so generously loaning me all the watches for my videos. And now let's spend some time to talk about the overall case design as well as the build quality of the watch here. I'm going to start by telling you that this watch has a mismatched finishing. Okay, so if you look at the watch head, this one here is full polish. From the mid case to the bezel to the lugs, everything is polished. Not a high level of polish, definitely not Sarasu polishing. It's entry level, very typical of lower end Seiko watches. But if you look at the bracelet here, this is done in the full brush finish. The top, or rather the front of the bracelet here, is fully brushed, leaving the sides of the bracelets to be polished. So I find this a big mismatch because in my unboxing video, I think I love the new look of the H-link bracelet, but I think upon closer inspection, the mismatch here is not a very pleasing look after all. Okay, so you've got a brush bracelet that is obviously less dressy, but the watch head here is full polished. I think there has to be some sort of uniformity in terms of the finishing, so I think Seiko must have overlooked this aspect. And finally, the bracelet has a butterfly clasp. So not the best in terms of strap adjustment, alright, or bracelet resizing. There doesn't seem to be any half links as well. You could run into some problems when it comes to the sizing of the bracelet. But on the whole, I think the finishing, the level of finish, the level of workmanship on this watch is pretty decent, alright, and I think it's very typical for this price point when it comes to Seiko Presage. This is definitely the lower end of the Seiko Presage line. You can't expect very high level of polishing. I do like the fact that this one here has got a sign crown. It's a non-screw-in crown, but it's a nicely signed crown here. I wish all Seikos would come with this sign crown here. Very good grip, alright, and I think it looks really nice, flows in line with the overall design of the watch. Now moving on to talk about the dial here, this is undoubtedly the star of the show. This dial, I think, I was pleasantly surprised when I unboxed the watch. I really gave a loud wow to it, right? This wow factor to the dial here. Really nice fume dial, and on top of the fume dial and the gradual color change from the center to the edge of the dial, we are also getting a really nice radial texturing on the dial. Really good looking. It's really amazing how good Seiko dials are at every price point. So this watch is not expensive, but I think this dial here, in terms of execution, in terms of color, in terms of looks, it probably beats many watches at probably 5 to 6 times the price. Now when it comes to other parts of the dial design, I would say it follows really closely, almost the same as other previous Cocktail Time models. The markers are definitely the same. We've got some sort of a diamond shaped look at the 6, 9 and 12 o'clock markers. The 3 o'clock here is slightly truncated due to this date wheel here, which is really nicely framed. I love this frame here, and I also like the fact that Seiko has chosen a black date wheel for this watch. I think this one here flows better when it comes to date wheel execution, because the white one will look a bit too out of place. So once again, let's just have a look at this beautiful looking fume blue dial. Alright, the gradation here on the dial is just fantastic, as well as the texturing. Truly amazing. Let's do a really quick size comparison between the Seiko Cocktail Time and my own The Citizen 4020 paper dial, washi dial. So you can see over here both watches, they are in the same, roughly in the same design language. Slightly dressier kind of style, but not overly dressy by way of the metal bracelet over here. So not the ultra thin, small 35 dress watch where you have a black alligator strap. And I think that at first glance you would think that the Seiko is a much bigger watch, but in reality, when you're talking about the wearability and the wearing experience, both watches are very, very similar. And here's a look at the Seiko Cocktail Time here on my wrist. My wrist is 17 centimeters, and I would say this one here fits really well. The really nice slim lugs here, really adds on to the wearability and the looks. Really nice looking watch. Alright, so for this price point, I think it definitely looks more expensive than the price that you're paying for. So in summary, this new model from the Seiko Presage line is a really beautiful looking watch for not a lot of money, because definitely entry level price. Well, granted, you're not getting the best in terms of level of finish, but I think for this dial here, it is definitely worth the asking price. Alright, fantastic release by Seiko. I'm not a big fan of the forearm movement anymore, but I have to be very honest, I am definitely in love with this blue dial over here. It just looks so good. So there you have it. That was my review of the SARY217, then one of the newer models from the Seiko Presage Cocktail Time series. If you like this watch, if you like the video, please remember to like and subscribe to my channel. This is Andy in Singapore, together with George and the two little assistants here. We're gonna say goodbye. See you next week for more watch reviews. Bye bye.